Hello, are you here to debate?
Yes, how's it going?
It's going pretty good. What's your name and how old are you?
I am John. I am 25.
All right, John, what are you here to talk about?
I heard you say that pro-life was an indefensible position.
Correct.
All right. I guess a couple questions to pledge out your opinion on that.
All right.
What I guess first, why? I guess we have to define our positions. I'm assuming you mean pro-life by meaning no abortions ever allowed ever, or how do you define pro-life?
Yeah, just an anti-abortion stance.
Okay. So for any reason, no abortions, any reason would be a pro-life stance in your book?
I think pro-lifers can have some exceptions. I would still argue that just the inherent stance of abortion is bad is indefensible.
Okay. Could I give you a hypothetical to see if we'd be on the same page still? Hello, you there?
Yeah, sure.
Yes. What if let's say, obviously we're grasping at extremities here, but let's say that nuclear war happens and reduces the Earth's population down to sub 10,000. Are we still saying like people aren't allowed to? Or are we still saying that no abortions is reasonable then?
Correct.
Really?
Yeah.
Even in a situation where the population of the world is
whether there are people in the world or not, that doesn't engage the fact that like somebody has a right to not be pregnant if they don't want to be pregnant.
Okay, so then I guess so you don't see that the right to not be pregnant by like not having intercourse, that wouldn't be like you give up your right to not be pregnant by going through that.
No, that's a causal obligation stance, and I think causal obligation is like one of the weakest abortion stances.
Pretend I'm retarded, 80 IQ, causal. What'd you say? I don't.
All right, relax.
I've never heard that term before.
Relax on the R word, homie.
My bad.
So causal, Jesus Christ. So causal obligation is just a stance that states because you did pregnancy, you are now causally obligated to care for a fetus. And again, I believe this to be an indefensible position because
the causal wouldn't be that you got pregnant. The causal would be that you willingly had sex, knowing that there's a chance of pregnancy. No.
Yeah. Why does having sex lead to you having to care for the fetus?
Well, because you made the choice. I mean, there's 100 different ways. Maybe not 100, but there's definitely a dozen or so different ways to prevent you from becoming pregnant while performing in intercourse. Then why are none of those options like?
So you would agree? You would agree based on this that abortions that happen due to rape or incest are justifiable abortions?
Yeah, I would in that framework. Yeah.
Yeah, so this would push up into the broader issue of like why pro-life then? Like what is killing the fetus? What does it matter if you kill a fetus?
Well, right now I think it matters because our population is declining. But that's coming from my own stance on whether or not I'm for or against abortions would be depending on the birth rate. So that's
well, that would just mean we're cattle. I don't think people are cattle.
I don't think people are cattle either.
Well, if you're saying that people have to stay pregnant to repopulate a species, yeah, that basically likens us to like cattle.
Yeah, I think that as humanity, as a species, we have a moral obligation to perpetuate our existence. Yeah.
Why?
Due to the fact that we are the only conscious beings in the known universe currently, and that there's some inherent essence of consciousness that should be protected and cultivated and propagated throughout time.
Because we're the only conscious species.
That we know of anyway, yeah. I guess my opinion might be a little bit more lenient if we discover that there's hundreds of other conscious beings in the universe, then yeah, maybe the existence of the human race specifically wouldn't be as important.
Well, apes are conscious. Like great apes are conscious.
How are we defining conscious then?
Well, I would assume you're
Aware
defining
of
conscious
oneself?
of yes, great apes show self-awareness.
Self-awareness.
If that's how you're
Okay.
defining consciousness, then yeah. So we're not the only species that is conscious. But I also just feel like this is just human exceptionalism, right?
Yeah, are we not the most exceptional species? I mean, we've
No.
conquered the whole planet. How is that not being the most exceptional?
Well, I don't think that disregards the fact that somebody doesn't have to give their resources if they don't want to.
Give their resources if they don't want to.
Correct. When you're pregnant, you're
Oh, you
giving
mean
your
to,
resources.
like, yeah. Well, and then we come back to the beginning of it of you relinquish that right when you knowingly perform an act that without contraception.
Yeah, I would disagree with this too, and I'll explain why. Saying that action X, so what you're basically saying is action A is going to result is the possibility of action A is going to result in outcome B, right? Action A will result in outcome B, and because of this, you're basically consenting to outcome B because you know the risk of outcome A. Would this be correct?
I don't think that is correct in every situation that we could hypothesize, but I think when it comes to
why would it be
sex
correct?
and procreation, yes.
Why if it's not the same in every other instance? Why is it the same in this instance?
Because it doesn't. Because it is. I think procreation and sexual intercourse has some other inherent thing where if you're engaged, I mean, I guess I'd go to like, okay, if you're engaging in, I'm really bad at like making up hypotheticals on the spot, but let's say you're engaging in driving a car. Like, I don't consent to getting hit or getting into an accident, but it happens. And I think that
would we deny you medical care?
Safety.
Wait, would we deny you the ability to seek out care because you knew the risk of getting in the accident?
No, but I wouldn't deny you the ability to drive because there's a possibility of an accident.
But we're not talking about the action, right? We're talking about the outcome of said action. So driving would be action A. Getting in an accident would be outcome B. And now we're saying like abortion would be akin to the medical service after, which would be outcome C. So what you're saying is that because you knew the risk of outcome A, you have to suffer the consequences of outcome B, which I would just disagree with.
Okay. I think. I guess when it comes down to it, then yeah, we are talking about something fundamentally different because it is procreation. We're creating a new life in this.
Okay, so it's
scenario
about
where there is no new life being created in any other like example that I could come up with.
Sure. So it's about the life that's being created. That's the ultimate reason why abortions would be.
That's why the abortion conversation as a whole is like fundamentally different than any other like action A dictates action B, therefore you can't be held responsible. I think that when we're talking about making the choice to procreate with somebody and that I mean obviously if you didn't know that the outcome of driving was getting into an accident whatever percentage of the time, then I guess we wouldn't fault you for getting into an accident. But at the same time, it's like I don't know how many people don't know that having sex is going to create a child.
Well, again, I don't think this actually matters because the actual crux of the argument is that it's a new life, and that new life is valuable. Not that you cause that life to be there, but just the fact that it's a life in general is a valuable thing.
Sure, yeah, and I guess I would go to how valuable is that thing in society at the time if a new human is imperative to the survival. I guess, yeah, then we loop back to, you don't think that the human survival is imperative or necessary or morally or any of that. Okay.
Well, what I would
Yeah, I
say
guess
is
we
that
just
what I would say is
fundamentally
that
disagree
the
on.
killing of this life would be justified, because again, the life is taking resources that it does not have a claim to.
Resources that it does not have a claim to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that a child in a womb has a claim to the resources because the mother's actions put it there.
Yeah, I would fundamentally disagree, right? When we're talking about whether you have a claim to those resources, we're saying that there's a right here. So we would say that the child has would have a quote unquote right to life, correct?
I get you could frame it that way. I'd put it more of a right not to be murdered innocently, but
That's the right to life.
that's just because we're in a population collapse at the moment. If population was rising, I'd feel differently about this.
Well, then your position is not causal obligation. It doesn't actually matter whether or not they caused it. All that matters is, are there enough people? So this isn't a
Right,
defensible position either.
But it's one level below that. We first determine, are we above replacement rate? If yes, then now we go to if we're above replacement rate, then whatever. You can not have the kid up to you. If we're below replacement rate, then it's imperative that we have that kid because you follow a negative population trend.
If we're above the replacement rate, none of the things change. That's still a causal obligation under your purview, and it's still a human life. But why is the life all of a sudden justified to be killed now?
I'm not saying it's justified to be killed. I'm saying that it's not necessary to be alive.
Well, it is. If you're saying that you don't have to have the pregnancy, then you're saying that having the abortion, which you consider killing I assume you consider killing a child, would be justified because
if we are below replacement rate, yes.
Yes, but this doesn't change any of your other. This is an illogical position because nothing changes here. There was still a causal link under your purview.
The birth rate is what changes. I have a different opinion on whether or not abortion is murder based on the birth rate of the populace.
Wait, so again, there is still a causal link, and it is still a human life that you view as valuable, but you're okay with it being killed. This would be an indefensible position.
If we're above replacement rate, yes.
You don't see the logical contradiction here?
Nope.
What you're basically saying is that the other two things don't actually matter. It doesn't actually matter that it's a human life.
I think you see it as a contradiction because whereas I don't, because we physically can't be above and below replacement rate at the same time.
No, it's a contradiction because the actual life of the actual things that you mentioned, the causal obligation and the life of the fetus don't actually matter. They don't actually mean anything in your worldview, right? Because all that matters, the only actual relevant point is the population rate. There are no other relevant points to your abortion stance.
From a broad view, yeah, but we're currently in a below replacement rate. So now I'm arguing from the position of we shouldn't be aborting kids that we need to grow up and increase our replacement of humanity.
Yes. Okay. So what I'm saying, is that any of the other arguments you've made contradict this argument.
All right.
So that it contradicts it. I would also argue there is no moral imperative to replace the population. Nobody has a moral imperative to do that.
We fundamentally disagree on that one, so I don't think there's any use in arguing that.
But I don't know how you defend this position. What it would if we hit? So here's the question: we hit a low enough population rate, right? That you get worried. At what point do you say, okay, well, we can just force people to have sex with women and force them to give birth? At what point in the population decline does that happen? What number
Like a
would
number
we have
of
to reach?
people?
Yeah, what number would we have to reach to make it where you basically say, well, we have to kind of factory farm people?
Right, yeah, like Handmaid's Tale type deal.
Yep.
That's a good question. I've never thought of an actual like specific number. I think society would I don't think we'd ever let it get that bad to where a government body would have to step in and
Yeah,
be
but
like,
this is
all
why
right,
the hypothetical is here.
pregnant factories.
This is why the hypothetical is here.
It would have to
I'm
be
testing your
low.
logic.
It would have. Sorry.
I said this is why the hypothetical is here. I'm testing your logic.
Right. It would have to be low. It'd have to be like 4-digit population, like a couple thousand people left.
But there is a
That I
number
would
where
say, like,
where you would force women to like forcibly make women have sex whether they want to have sex or not. There is a number.
Yeah, I think it's their moral imperative to do so at that point. Yes. But again, we're so far away from that ever being a scenario.
You realize what you just said, though, right? That there is a number where you would forcibly
biologically.
No. There's a number where you would
kids,
forcibly rape women.
Sure, if you want to frame it like that, yeah.
Well, that's how else would I frame it? You're saying that you don't care what they want. You would force them to have sex, and then you would force them to give birth.
Yeah, for sure. As opposed to the human existence going away, yes, I think that the raping of a couple thousand women would be less harmful to the world than having humanity cease to exist. I have another topic if you want to move off of this, though. Up to you. It wasn't on your little board. It was about just government child protective services, if you had an opinion on them and how they practice or whatnot.
I'm gonna keep it $1.50. I'm trying to figure out how to go from the.
Hey, we just did. I just asked the question.
Hold on a second.
Take your time.
We're gonna move on. I think I'm gonna just. I think I'll just move on from. I think if your position calls for the forceful rape of people, then it's not a morally correct position.